Suffering Podcast.
The poet Robert Burns once wrote, "The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Being driven towards a purpose fills your soul with fulfillment that money cannot buy. Believing that we find our place in this world amongst the confusion of decision. Things are going smooth and you're sailing on autopilot. Then suddenly, a wave comes crashing over your bow and your ship begins to sink. You lose sight of your destination and your options begin to shrink. You hang on hoping to return to your life's work, but that return becomes less and less possible as you start to take on water. Before you know it, you're in a fight for your life, just moments after the seas were calm." I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we sit down with somebody who I've been speaking with for a little while. He's got a fantastic story, and he has overcome so much. But one of the greatest things about you, Jonathan, is your ability to adapt and overcome in the face of some amazing adversity. And tonight we're going to talk about the suffering of, there's so many different things here, but I think the most apt thing to call it is the thin blue ride, because that's what you've been on. And we're here with Jonathan Dates. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Before we get into anything, a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police. We certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and make sure you tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. So Jonathan, each week we take a question from our audience. This question, and I actually kind of like the name because I like this movie, comes from Pistachio Disguisey. If you've ever seen Master of Disguise, it's one of my favorite movies in the world. What's an insult you received and been proud to receive it?
All right, there's been a couple over the years. I think the first one that comes to mind, when I first got on the job, 2000 academy was 06 to 07. We had 14 recruits in our academy. So Worcester is the second largest city. Usually there's 30 police recruits.
You're highly visible.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no hiding in that class. So one of my buddies, we were working in the cell room, driving the paddy wagon, booking prisoners, which is not the dream job. And something happened when my buddy Tony said, like, "Man, Dage, it could be raining sideways and you're still, happy." And I just started laughing. It made me think of, Forrest Gump, like sideways rain, upside down rain, like all that. But it could always be worse. And I've thought that for a very long time. I guess that's, helped me out through what I've been going through now. But looking back at that was pre-cancer. And it was always, instilled then.
Attitude is everything. Just watch somebody at the end of their life when they give up. They usually die very quickly. But watch somebody who has that will to live and never lets it up. Man, they go on forever.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people who have insulted me, from, I heard one today that I thought was pretty funny. It's like you're at a urinal and say, "Hey, if it was any bigger, it would be a dick." But, I'm very confidential. I have a lot of people reaching out to me. They're having issues. They're having hardships. They're having a moment. And I keep those in full confidence. They'll tell me things that they probably shouldn't. There was one time I had a high-level ranking officer in another police department say, "I know this person talked to you. I need to know what he talked to you about." And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, he's having some issues and I need to get to the bottom of it." And I said, "We just talked as friends. There's nothing, no substance to what we spoke about." And I got called every name in the book. I got called an asshole. I got called a self-serving person, somebody who doesn't care about helping other people, because he had everybody, he had their best interests at heart. When I knew that wasn't the case. I knew they were looking to jam this poor guy up, and I refused to give them anything. But I got called every single name in the book, but I took it as a real proud moment. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's right. You can rip my fingernails out. You can torture me. You can do whatever you want to do. If you tell me something, it's not going anywhere unless somebody else in your immediate circle is in danger, like your wife or your kids,
Yeah.
then that's a different course of action. But if you're just telling me the problems that you have, I die with that stuff. And all I got left is my name. And if I give up that information that you trusted me with, what's that say about my name?
Yeah, especially being a first responder.
Yeah, you got to keep secrets, and some of those secrets are hard to keep, but I think that's part of who we are.
Yeah.
So, Pistachio Disguisey, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So, Jonathan, you drove all the way down here from, don't tell me you're a Patriots fan. Please tell me you're not a
Well,
Patriots.
you got to be a Patriots fan. Well, maybe not now, but, back when Brady was crushing it.
Oh, sure. It's easy to be a fan when you got Tom Terrific doing everything right. But you're going to live through some pretty lean years now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but ticket prices still won't go down.
That's all right. I'm an Eagles fan, so it's a good time to be an Eagles fan. So why don't you give our audience a little bit about you, where you grew up, how you grew up?
Grew up in central Massachusetts, right outside of Worcester in this small town called Leicester, which there's not much there. Put it this way, I used to ride my snowmobile to school in winter. And it was the only time I was early for school. Small class, grew up playing youth sports, baseball as a kid, basketball, soccer, then Pop Warner football, high school football, working in the family steel fab. My father owned a construction company, a welding company. So I grew up welding. As a kid, I think I was in the 8th grade, and I went to wear one of my class shirts on the job. My dad's like, no, if anyone asks, you're 18. So I had to hide my age for a bit
But it's funny, and just to give a little backdrop here, because we're going to get into something in a moment that gets real serious. The playing sports, I have a tough time fully putting my trust in somebody who's never played sports, because sports is so much more than athletics.
Yeah.
It teaches you so much about life, how to overcome pain, how to work hard, how to play with others, all those different lessons. And it recently came up where I had a decision to make between two people, and one of them I knew was an athlete.
Yeah.
And they were on pretty equal footing. One of them was an athlete, one of them was not an athlete. And I drove to the one that was an athlete because I know he has it in him to overcome certain things.
Yeah.
It's amazing how those decisions take place.
And it's like a selfless mindset too.
Yeah.
Well, some sports are, individual sports, but at the same time, youth sports, that's where you learn. I'm a football coach for my son's football team, and I have been from flex. I mean, my son's 13. He's played, I think, 12 seasons of football so far, and a lot of it being tackle. And the caliber of kids that we get playing football that show up, that have their stuff ready, and I tell them, this is supposed to suck.
Mm-hmm.
If it was easy, everyone would do it. And going forward, Pop Warner sucked. It was fun, right? But you learn how to grind it out. High school football was tough. But then going right into the Army, after 9/11, signed up for the Army. And I remember going through my head, football was like this. Double sessions were like this.
You have your boot camp, right? So your boot camp is youth football all over again.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're suffering, you're spilling blood with people, and all that stuff builds character, and it builds closeness to other people. Closeness that somebody who didn't experience. I didn't go into the military. I tried, but they didn't want me.
Yeah.
And all that stuff builds a bond because you've chewed dirt with one another.
Yeah.
You've gone through that suffering. Police academy, same thing. You were out in the lean and rest in August heat and the asphalt. Well, guess what? The person next to you did the same thing. They were able to endure, so you can endure. It gives you a little bit extra.
Yeah.
So that's that. It's a certain mindset that comes in with youth sports, and I carry that with me everywhere I go. If I have a decision between somebody I know who, I'm gonna put boot camp in there as well. Played sports, boot camp, somebody who knows how to work with others. I'm always going to gravitate towards that person.
Makes sense.
You go through, play sports in high school, normal childhood.
Yeah.
Parents still together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been together since, 43 years.
Oh, they're weird.
Yeah, definitely. It's the two polar opposites at times, but, they make it work. And it's something that actually, the family grew up, how we grew up was pretty unique. On my father's side, it was Nana and Grandpa's house. They had 10 kids.
Oh, they need to get cable.
Raised 2,000 chickens every couple weeks. And then it was, fast forward, my parents built a house behind my grandparents. My uncle built a house next to my grandparents, then my aunt and uncle. Skip a house, my other aunt and uncle. Across the street, my sister. Then across the street, my aunt. And then we built up the street. So we're on, right, you know, we got about 25 acres of family land close to the Worcester Airport. Like that's where I grew up, in the woods, fishing, making forts.
You're trying to
all
make
this.
Dageville or something up
Yeah.
there. That's what
Yeah,
you're trying to
pretty
do.
much.
Yeah. But that's kind of cool though. I mean, you're surrounded by family, because most people these days, you know, they see their aunt, their uncle, their cousins
Yeah.
once a year, twice a year, if that, if
Yeah.
they're lucky. And you had that around you, but what did that do for you? Like you were in a almost a concealed neighborhood where you could pretty much do whatever you want because you were always within arm's length of family.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I remember before, you know, getting a map of Leicester and highlighting. My cousin was like 4 years older than me. I'm like, hey, let's go down every road in Leicester. So we highlighted the whole summer. Another summer, we're carrying a boat to a little pond, catching fish every day, packing a lunch, and you know, and then spring we'd play baseball in the field. Fall we'd play football. And now there's a 90-foot tall pine tree in front of my grandparents' house. They've since passed, but my aunt lives there now. My father owns a crane company. So every November, we get the cranes. We put Christmas lights on the trees. We have a huge bonfire. We call it Festivus. But, you know, and it's one of those things where the whole family gets together.
Airing of
Kinda like a
grievances,
potluck. Yeah, yeah, all that.
Got a
We
lot
get
of problems
we
with
get
you
the pole,
people.
yeah. But it's awesome. And it's funny. That's when, right around the time my wife came up from New Jersey, and she loved the fact of that family togetherness. And it was, you know, there's not a lot of that around, I don't think. So to see that from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, your family gets together.
It's very whitewashed now. The way kids grow up now is very whitewashed, and you'll see it up here in New Jersey, especially some of the wealthier areas. Those people don't even put up their own Christmas lights. There's a personal touch to putting your own Christmas lights up, where you can stand back, and it's something I do with my kids every single year. We go outside the day after Thanksgiving. We put up all the Christmas lights, and then by the time we're done, it's usually dark.
Mm-hmm.
We stand back and we sort of,
Yeah.
all right, we did it. But then you see these houses that get the lights put up professionally, and I'm like, this is soulless. This has got nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't even, it doesn't even look good to me.
Yeah.
It looks manufactured. So that's actually kind of cool. What'd you go after high school? College?
No, I was a complete goon in high school. I had, my classes were a joke. I was not pushed, nor did I drive for that, for the books. It wasn't easy for me. I had video 1, video 2. So me and my buddy were doing burnouts in my Camaro for a 10-minute video, and then jumping off the roof onto the trampoline for our 20-minute video, like complete bogus. My sister went to Dean College. She was a year older, class ahead. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Dean College and maybe play football or whatever. And I applied. They didn't take me. I was like, screw it, I'll work in the welding shop.
But that's funny. So your father being in construction, probably making a decent living in construction.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's happening now. You know, my generation, I don't know how old you are, I'm 50 years old. My generation was, you're going to college. You're going to college. The gap in the amount of money that you're going to make going to college isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you used to be able to bank on the fact that I'm going to be this much higher than somebody who didn't go to college. But if you go in construction now, the payment is so good. I mean, if you go to a trade school even, you're getting half pay while you're in trade school.
So my father went to boys trade. So he says he only had 2 years of high school because the other 2 years were working. Your work and school. He bought the welding business, which was a name and a truck, at 18 years old. And then he's built it up from there, sold that business, started the crane business. So now he has the crane business, which I'm working at to try and get people to rent cranes and do the social media stuff and, just get a little more outreach.
But it's a different type of mindset, right?
Yeah.
You know, and actually I got to give it to your father on this one, because here's the way it's always worked in America. You know, one group of people will go out there and do the hard labor work. You had Italians doing brickwork. Well, they didn't want their kids to do brickwork because it's hard work.
Yeah.
So what happened? The Portuguese took it over. Portuguese came in, did all the mason work, and they didn't want their kids to do it. So now you have the Spanish coming in there, and they're taking over the mason work.
Yeah.
But what they didn't realize is sending your kids to college, they could have made twice as much money, had the freedom of having their own business. And there's nothing like being on a construction site. I've done construction since I was 13 years old, and it's the most freeing experience. It's what I did when I retired. It's the most freeing experience because you and I could have an argument, and we're going to argue. We may fight, but then we go back to work, and there's no HR bullshit to deal with, no internal affairs, none of that shit. So it's a very freeing experience. So in a lot of ways, I can say your childhood is extremely fortunate.
Yeah, and it also kept me out of trouble too. Mm-hmm. Not that I was, granted, when I was working, if it wasn't football season, I was working, not a ton, couple hours. I had a 87 Monty SS in my driveway before I had my license because I worked. First, it was let's save up for a four-wheeler. And then it was, well, all right, I'm almost 16, time for a car. So, that was work for it, earn it, appreciate it.
Yeah, you have that sense of gratitude. And so in a lot of ways, your father gave you the best gift I've heard in a long time that parents gave their child.
Yeah.
I try to instill that in my kids. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I don't, there's a piece to it, right? So you have kids, and your kids are around the same age as my kids. You want to try to give them the things that you didn't have. Well, I'm not so sure that's the right way to do things. You had to work for everything. Yeah. So, and I know this. So there's some things I make them work for. Some things I give them because they're my kids.
I say our kids are bougie, but
Yeah.
But it's our own fault too.
Well, they all got the phones now. Yeah. They have information at the tip of their fingers, yet they know nothing.
Yeah.
But I try to instill different things in my kids. Hard work, how to fix things. How to have hands on. They're doing well. I will say that.
I was gonna say we should have had Jack on the show, my dad.
Oh yeah, I'd love to have him. I'd like what kind of mindset? Because the kid wasn't ready for college, and whatever it may be.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens next in your life? Are you just full bore into the welding crane business?
I wasn't really sure of the path. I knew it was not college. It was working, and you get paid every week. Mm-hmm. And moved out of the house at 18. That summer, 9/11 happened.
Ooh.
I went 2 days later, went to the recruiter, and I signed up with the reserves because I said, I kind of want to drive cool Army trucks. I kind of want to go active duty, but if I go active duty and it sucks, I'm screwed. Mm-hmm. So, but I also had the option, if I went reserve and liked it, then I could put in to go active. You can't go active and then go reserve.
Right.
So I made the decision. I'm like, all right, let me dip my toes in, see if I like the Army. And went to the recruiter, signed up. October 16th, I was down in Fort Knox for basic training. And then I went to Fort Leonard Wood for basically like truck driving school in the Army.
Well, did you have your CDL because of the crane business?
No, he didn't have the crane business then. It was just the welding business. And he had one crane because we did steel fab. So we'd put up a building. We'd have to rent cranes. Then he bought this old crane, 1956 Grove, I think it was. So we were doing work. Another crane company either closed down or whatever. So we bought some of their cranes, and then it was starting to build up early 2000s.
Now, how did your father take it that you joined the military? Because not only is he losing a laborer, you're still his son, and I'm sure that he loves you and cares about you.
My dad's pretty, I wouldn't say soft-spoken, but he's not going to give you an earful. It'll be like, well, maybe you should do this. And if Jack says, maybe you should do this, you should probably freaking do it. Because that's
you're being voluntold.
Yeah. But no, because he's been through it. He has that good business mindset. As a kid, I always knew I wanted to be a cop and be in the military. And that, I don't know where that drive came from. Maybe just trying to help people, do some cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like do the Army stuff.
Yeah.
I was always drawn to
one's
that.
a conduit to the other. Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsip. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
Being in Massachusetts in the early 2000s, I want to say 2001 or 2, 30,000 people signed up for the state police exam and filled up the DCU center, like the arena. Now there's like a couple hundred. So you needed to get 100% on your test score, which I was not doing, or be a veteran. So getting veteran status was part of my plan. Also, I didn't want to just get the veteran status. I wanted to be a soldier and serve my country and serve the higher purpose. And that, that was part of it. So that was going to help me be a police officer.
So what branch did you enlist in?
Army.
You went Army 2 days after 9/11.
Yeah.
That's we watched generation after generation do that. After Pearl Harbor, the mass of people that went in there. Yeah. Anytime a tragedy hits like that, there's people that come out of the woodworks, people such as yourself that say, okay, I'm ready to go do this stuff. There had to be an enormous sense of pride in you in order to do that.
It's kind of funny because fast forward to getting deployed like 10 months later or whatever, we get deployed in January.
The thing you didn't want.
Yeah, of 03. I did want to get deployed. It was just depending on where we were going. We were supposed to go to Turkey. We didn't know. I was 20 years old in Iraq, but we didn't really know where we were going, what we were going to do, but that's just part of it.
How'd you fit into military life?
I enjoyed it. We were out of a reserve center out of Brockton, so south of Boston, and you don't know where you're going until after you do the job training, active duty. So I realized I was going to a POL unit, which is fuel tankers. And I'm like, oh, what's their life expectancy in combat? 2.2 seconds or whatever it was. I'm like, oh, awesome. So we did fuel transportation missions to Baghdad airport all over different FOBs in Iraq. And that was...
Damn, wait, hold on a second. So you're out in the middle of nowhere in a fuel truck, in a bomb.
Yeah.
You're in a bomb, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. Damn. You know what? I heard... water, giving these bases water was another dangerous job, but I imagine yours is twice as dangerous. One spark, you're done.
So JP8, diesel fuel, jet fuel, same thing. It's all about, I don't know how magnetized or whatever. I'm not a fuel guy, but we would travel with the top. We'd have 5,000 gallon tankers. We'd fill them with 4,800 gallons of fuel, and we'd have the top valve open so the fumes could escape. We've actually had tankers that got shot with rounds and fuel would come out. So it's essentially a pretty stable fuel. They were more...
It's not like the movies you talk about?
Yeah, no. It'd be more dangerous with an empty tanker with the fumes. So anytime... Actually, sorry, we would keep it closed with the fuel and we were low. We'd always keep a couple hundred gallons so we could fuel ourselves up, so we wouldn't have to wait in line for hours. So when they were low and there was a lot of vapors, we'd open the hatch on top just to let the vapors escape.
So you did that deployment, anything hairy? Anything going?
No, we were really lucky. We did missions every day. We were doing 8 hours in the truck. We were with a unit out of New York City, kind of left seat, right seat with them for a little while. We went... So we get to see the whole country pretty much, north of Baghdad, south of Baghdad, east, west, and we did our own convoy security. There was really no IEDs at the time, but they were, we'd get op reports at the end of the day of they'd have bridges in the middle of nowhere to cross, different towns and stuff, villages, and they would have snipers on bridges. They would hang cans with explosives because that would be a choke point. So, or put piano wire across to behead the gunners or whatever. So we would start getting inventive on what we're going to do. And the days that was in the truck, the tanker, we had a soft top, so I cut a U shape, rolled it up, put some 550 cord, and then I would stand in the passenger seat like a gunner, because in my eyes, if somebody's going to shoot at me from the bridge, you can't really shoot back from being in the cab.
Very true.
And if you show force, anytime we've shown force in 03 and then 05, 06 when I got deployed again, I was a 50 cal gunner in a Humvee and an LMTV, and then also a gunner in an ASV, which is a 4-wheel tank with a 40 mic grenade launcher and a 50 cal machine gun. The thing was awesome, and the air conditioned cranked in it. But anytime we would show force, we'd be in the guns all the time. You know, pointing flashlights, just being proactive, because you could see that from miles away. And then we would see other convoys coming another way. Their 50 cals would be floating in the breeze, and then we'd break down, they would pass us, they would get hit. Or we would pass somebody, convoy behind us would get hit. So we've had some trucks get blown up personally, some pop shots, and really friggin' lucky.
Well, that's a good point. You know, if they see two convoys, one 50 cal is up in the air and one yours is scanning the horizon.
Yeah.
Well, who am I going after if I'm one of them?
Yeah, soft target.
Yeah, it's much easier to target. So you go through those 2 deployments, and then when was it time to? I'm done.
So I was still in right when the week before I left to go to Iraq. I get a call from my family that I got a letter for going into the police academy, because I had veteran status from 03 deployment. So this was back in 05.
So you're like, my plan's coming
Yeah,
together.
I'm like, perfect. And it's funny because in my head, I didn't know how true I was going to follow through with it. But I said, if I don't get on Worcester, I'm going to move to California and try to get on out there, because I feel like they were taking everybody.
I bet you
now
get
they
on
probably would, yeah.
I'm getting real easy right now.
So I had to go to JAG, the judge advocate. I had to sign my father as a power of attorney. So my dad went to all the pre-academy screenings with all the recruits sitting there and like forgetting a pen and
You
all
got
this
the
stuff.
best dad in the world, just so you know.
Yeah. So it's funny when he tells those stories too. They're like, who doesn't have a pen? My dad's like, I don't have a pen. But so that locked in my slot, because when you're deployed, different, I guess federally, you have protections on losing your job, keeping your job, all that stuff. So they had to hold my spot. So when I get back, I did a 05 into 06 deployment. And December of 06, I was in the academy. So I came home, worked for my dad for a couple months, and then went right to the academy. And then when I was in the police department, in the reserves, I had a 6x2, so 6 years of drilling, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, a couple deployments in Iraq, and then 2 years inactive ready. So you're on a list to get deployed. Mm-hmm. Because I deployed twice in a 5-year period, they wanted bodies to drill out, and they said, you're non-deployable. Like, hey, you could still come to drill because we need people to come to drill, but you won't get deployed. So I said, okay, cool. Okay. I went to combative school in Rhode Island. I went to jump school.
Oh, that's cool.
I was a truck driver that went to jump school. So
you were very fortunate in the way you did it, because you're obviously in shape for the military and you jump right into here. So you're like, okay, I don't have to do any prep work. Yeah. I'm there already.
Yeah. The academy for me was a little tougher because it was all books. Mm-hmm. And even my dad told me, he goes, you never studied in high school. You had all these bullshit classes. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So I was grinding in the academy. I ended up being top shot in the academy. We had Glocks. They were, lights out.
The 40s or 9s?
We had 40s at the time. But, I excelled in the PT and shooting. And then when it came to the books, it was writing those IDCs every night, studying and writing probable cause until I driving around with 3x5s, trying to memorize every definition.
The one thing I learned about Glock, especially Glock 40s, never stand on the line next to somebody to their right shooting a Glock 40, because they spit out the shells. Yeah. They spit them out hard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I got stuck on the line with somebody, and one of their shells stuck in my glasses right here.
It burns.
I had this. I look like the Scar guy from The Lion King, because I had this big, huge burn mark right above my eye forever. Never went away. But yeah, that's what kind of sucks. But so you get on? Do you get on Leicester? Or
Worcester. So Worcester. I changed my address to Worcester because you needed to be a resident.
Okay.
I changed my address to Worcester. Started renting a house. got deployed. So that address stayed with me to be a resident. By the time I got home, did all the background stuff, I was good to go for the city of Worcester. Then worked the cell room for 3.5 years, which it sucked, but you were with your buddies from the academy. So it was like, it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, we did everything from pick people up in the paddy wagon. One funny story, me and my buddy Pat, he's Secret Service now. We were driving around and we were new to the job. We had the Garmin GPS suction to the thing. And there was this thing in Worcester called Summer Impact where they want you to go make arrests. You get paid overtime, go make arrests, quality of life arrests. So guys go out and lock up everybody, like 25 bookings in an 8-hour shift. And
that's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. So we had a wagon full of customers. And then they said, wagon 88, could you go to Orient Street? So we go to the wrong side of the city. And then the guy in the back he said, no, Orion Street, that's off of Grafton Street. And we're like, we're the new guys. We're like, you better not be lying to us. So we're listening to the guy who got arrested in the back to give us to tell us where to go in the wagon.
He's trying to garner a little bit of favor with you guys. Hey, well, listen.
You got an extra bologna sandwich there.
Oh, God. Bologna sandwich and mud. So what was it about police work that you enjoyed?
I learned a lot being in the cell room. When I finally got on the road to operations, which is regular police answering calls for service, I appreciated good arrests. I wasn't doing the bullshit trespass or the open container. Some guy's working on the brakes in his car and he doesn't have a driveway, so he's working on the street. Technically, it's an open container, arrestable. But, like, really, this dude's, you don't have a beer and you work on your car? So it was that type of stuff where I went into the busy areas of being like, you know the tools on when you could arrest somebody. I mean, you can arrest somebody for trespassing if they're being a complete
But
jerk.
if you look hard enough, you can charge somebody with something.
Oh, yeah.
You could write them a ticket for something. But police work, I firmly believe police work is corrective and not punitive. When you run into stuff like that, and I know cops who did that, you start looking at it as a punishment. No, I'm not I'm trying to correct bad behavior. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who really needs to be arrested. Now, listen, if that probable cause, you got an open container, and I know you're doing up to no good, you got an open container, okay, we're going to talk.
Yeah.
But that's a different story. That's just getting in.
Yeah. So that was my mindset. And a lot of, some nights I'd work with a partner and then other nights I'd be solo. I'd bounce around a little bit until I had my route. And I had a busy route, 4 to midnight in the city. So it was, it'd be 10 reports, guy chasing someone with a machete, gang stuff, a little bit of everything. Or some nights it would be dead. So
never use the Q word.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're riding along in your police career. It sounds like you fit there just like a round peg in a round hole. You're finding your purpose, you're finding your way, and something happens to you that sort of flipped your life upside down. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
In 2012, I noticed in uniform, my groin was killing me. And in my eyes, I was working out a lot. SWAT tryouts were coming up. And
you got a hernia?
I had a hernia in 2003 when I was in Iraq because we also had, like pickup truck style Humvees. So I had a 249, the 5.56 machine gun, and we would jump in and out of the trucks, stop traffic, because that was just what, convoy flow and everything. We would jump in and out, stop cars, carrying 50 carrying all our gear everywhere. And it was, woke up in the middle of the night, excruciating pain, had a hernia, came home, had surgery. So fast forward to 2012, working out a lot, groin hurts. I'm like, yeah, it's probably a hernia. Go to the ER in uniform because with the gun belt, I think it just made it way worse wearing the leather gun belt. And they did an ultrasound on my testicle and did met with the urologist, and they said, yeah, it looks like it's a growth. You need to come back next week so we can remove it.
Oh, have a good week.
And I was like, wait, by growth, you mean tumor? He said, yeah, we'll take it out, and then, that'll be next week. I go, so you're going to take the testicle out, take the cancer off, and then put the testicle back in. He goes, no, the testicle's no good. You got to junk it. I go, well,
Junk it?
well, like, could I get a fake one? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like,
Well,
at least I get something.
What doctor are you talking to?
That
Is
bedside manner was awful.
It's just so nonchalant. Yeah, we're just going to cut your nut off. Don't worry about
exactly. I'm like, oh, don't go to the doctor's on a Friday. 'Cause that sucked. And then call my family. Hey, this is what's going on. Very, brick wall. You're just like, what the hell's going on?
Well, your life just stops.
Yeah.
You're sailing along and everything, and all of a sudden you get hit with this thing. Go like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I think it's a hernia or something. 10 other things besides testicular cancer.
And everybody around you is just growth. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. It's not going to be anything bad.
Yeah, super treatable, super common, super treatable. And the ages of testicular cancer is between 16 and 30, roughly. I was 29. So I was like,
50.
oh, just missed it. Yeah.
I made it.
So, I had a week later, outpatient surgery, testicle removed, put the fake one in, go back to they put me behind the desk when I was ready to come back, just to come back to work, because technically we don't have light duty. It's some union thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had scans and they found that I had swollen lymph nodes. And the easiest way to get to your lymph nodes is to cut you open from your waist to your sternum, take all your guts out,
Like a zipper.
put them on your chest like a human canoe, take your lymph nodes out, put everything back in, and seal it back up.
That had to feel wonderful.
That was the most invasive surgery I think anyone could get.
You got autopsied while you were still alive.
Yeah, pretty much. So I went to Providence Hospital for that one. I saw a specialist. Pain in the ass dealing with the insurance company because I was doing an out-of-network thing. And I don't know if I just can't deal with people over the phone sometimes, especially when you're just a number with insurance companies. I remember calling over 22 times, and this woman said, oh, Jonathan, you've called over 22 times about the surgery. We're trying to get it okayed. It's over $100,000. And I said, ma'am, they're going to cut me open, just how I explained it to you. I said, this is what they do for the surgery. I'm not going to go to somebody who's done this twice in their career. I'm going to somebody who does this like on a normal basis.
Hun, I'm trying to stay alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then they called me back and they go, Jonathan, you've been approved for your surgery. I'm like, thanks, click. Like, it's all that frustration with trying to get people to understand that this isn't just somebody trying to get like a hangnail fixed.
Well, it's also different. So you're dealing with the stress of whatever's going on in your body.
Yeah.
And now you're dealing with an additional stress of trying to get it paid for through your insurance, which is supposed to pay for your care.
Exactly.
Okay, insurance company, I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan, and there's a whole rant that I can go on that one.
Yeah.
So you go in there, you have it done.
Mm-hmm.
The recovery process of that one's got to be wicked because... And I'm using a New England term. I said wicked, just so I speak your language.
I like it.
I didn't do that. But, your stuff is set inside your body, and when it's removed and put back in, oh, my God.
Yeah, that was pretty painful. They said, of course, post-surgery, you can't eat. And they said, you need to pass gas before you eat anything, so you need to walk around. They built a new wing of the hospital. I probably walked a mile a day. And I'm telling them I am doing everything I can to try and pass gas. And I looked, there's a picture I have on a Tim Ride's Instagram where I look pregnant, like just so distended. And I remember having a morphine drip. I was hitting that every couple minutes when I could. It was just so painful. Then I had a dietary restriction. I couldn't eat more than 5 grams of fat a day. So I was super lean, out of work for 6 months and 2 weeks.
So did they took the lymph nodes out and they took the testicle out, the growths on there, were they cancerous?
So the growth on the testicle was, yes, mixed germ cell, non-seminoma, testicular cancer. The lymph nodes were like a certain size, I forget, 3 millimeters or whatever it was. And it was to the point where I could choose to have the surgery, or I could just say, I'm going to let the cards lie and see what happens. And I wanted to be proactive and not have it could have grown to be a teratoma, which is bone, fat, muscle, hair, teeth. Like basically it's a tumor, like an alien tumor in your body. And I'm like, I do not want that.
So it's 2012, right?
Yeah.
You're how old at this point?
29.
You're 29 years old. Your life is just beginning. Are you attached, girlfriend, married? Did you?
No, I think I was single at the time.
Because that's a whole other different wrinkle to walk down. You know what? And you know, if you were with somebody and that person, like for me, here's the way I would look at it. But look, I got to go through this whole thing here. If you want to check out here, I get it. I understand it. Because it's hard for somebody to sit by and watch, especially at 29. You know, you've done everything that you, up to this point, that you set out to do. You set all these goals, you hit all these marks, then you hit this wall with this stuff. The recovery, 6 months of recovery, learning how to, like, because your core is cut open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, and the surgeons always told me, too, like, the more muscle you have, the more sore you're going to be. So, I mean, now I have like permanent tooth. I have the scar that goes all the way up and down, goes around the belly button. But
that's better than a war story.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's clean. It's not the zipper. They use like a glue. So it's pretty clean. And, you know, after that, I was on the road to recovery to get back to work. And that's when I was getting ready for the SWAT tryouts, because it was a 2-day tryout selection process, running a lot, pushing the sled, and then I started coughing up blood. So
somebody's telling you not to be on SWAT.
Yeah, exactly. So I was running, doing all that stuff, you know, day one, like on a Monday, I coughed up blood. And then it didn't happen again. And it was, you know, March maybe. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's dry in the house. In New England, sometimes it's dry. You can get a bloody nose at night or something.
Sure.
I'm like, maybe I had a bloody nose. Maybe I'm coughing up some blood or whatever. Day 2, coughed up a little bit of blood. Like, all right. And then go on to day 5. I'm like, yeah, I should probably go to the doctors. And I went to St. Vincent's Hospital in Worcester. They told me I had 6 tumors in my chest and lungs. 1 pushing on my jugular, the other on my lungs, 1 pushing on my stomach. And I was dropping weight as well. And I was working out, but I need to eat really clean, and I need to work out, like do a lot of running to get lean. Like I know my body, and I was dropping more weight than I should have been. And St. V's said, this is beyond us. So here's a tip. If you have insurance and you need to go somewhere else for anything, you could ask for an out-of-network visit. So I asked for an out-of-network visit with my primary care. They granted me the visit to go to Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston. I went to Dana-Farber on a second opinion. I met my oncologist, Dr. Sweeney, who was amazing. And he looked at my scans and said, you're not leaving. Like, that's how bad it is. Would have been considered stage 4. So basically the mixed germ cell non-seminoma testicular cancer spread throughout my chest and lungs and laid dormant for, you know, X amount of months.
Do you have any history of cancer in your family? I know everybody has cancer cells in them. I get that point, but you're 29 years old. They shouldn't be rearing their heads so soon.
Yeah. So, and I even checked on that because my mother had breast cancer twice, had a double mastectomy. Now she has CLL, leukemia, chronic lymphatic leukemia. And asking the oncologist that, they're just like, it's not a gene type cancer where it would be carried, but there is cancer in the family. So it's not the same cancer.
I'm looking back to your deployments for doing what you did. Were you exposed to something that you shouldn't have been exposed to?
Absolutely. Because we work with another nonprofit called Hunter 7 Foundation, and Chelsea does a great job of getting information out there with toxic exposure to veterans. Mm-hmm. And there are so many veterans getting sick from burn pits. We had an IED jammer the size of a microwave. I was a 50 cal gunner, so it was at waist height. And they said, it's a box, don't open it, don't look at it, don't touch it. But it sets an invisible bubble around the Humvee or truck you're in and jams the signal if there's a IED with a cell phone or, you know. So there's that, like a known. And then there's also all the burning trash. And it's not just trash. This is military equipment that they're burning. So they're burning everything, and you're breathing that in. And 2003, those 5,000-gallon fuel trucks, we were on a base called Cedar One, which I think was a logistical fuck up because it was in the middle of nowhere. The sand was like talcum powder.
Yeah, it's like moon dust. Yeah.
You jump off the truck, feet hit the deck, and then the dust just rises. Every day was a sandstorm. So we had 30 truck convoys leaving, and that was just our unit, never mind everyone else on the base. So we didn't have water. They would open up the J valve, the big, whatever, 4 or 5 inch valve, and dump jet fuel on the road to keep the dust down every day.
So you have all this stuff in your lungs. Did they remove it?
When I went to see Dr. Sweeney, he said, you're not leaving, because if I left, that would have avoided the one visit.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, we need to do chemo 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You need to be hooked up for 8 hours at a time with, I think I had 8 different bags, 3 different chemos, super aggressive, with potassium, IV, steroid, all that stuff.
Losing all your hair and everything?
Yeah, which I didn't have too much hair, but I think I was down to like 7 eyebrows at one point. And so I had my own room at St. V's, not St. V's, at Brigham and Women's, because that's a inpatient, Dana-Farber's outpatient, but they're all connected in Boston. So I was hooked up 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'd go home for 2 weeks. Then I'd go back 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I'd go from Wednesday to Sunday. I'd be home Monday, and it would feel like a bad hangover. And then Tuesday would feel like still a bad hangover. And then I'd get back into doing some workouts, maybe going golfing, go to the movies. My friend group was very tight. They'd be at the house. So I did that for 5 months. Then...
And work is still holding steady?
So we have a thing called Sick Bank. So you donate 3 days a year. It goes into this bank of city employees, and somebody like me who's not injured on duty or has a heart attack, you can use those days. Every 30 working days, your union signs off. It goes to City Hall. So you're getting paid as if you're working 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Which is awesome.
Well, that's a good deal. I mean, it's certainly not the way you wanted your career to line up, but
yeah.
My big question to you is, so this is your 3rd step down the cancer road.
Yeah.
In a very short period of time. What's your mind like at this point? Are you starting to get discouraged? Like, okay, this is it.
I always say there was always a light at the end of the tunnel for me. It was, hey, you got 6 tumors in your chest and lungs. We're going to do chemo and then shrink the tumors and go from there. I'm like, okay. And then I go back and I had to have the top and bottom lobe of my right lung removed. And he did a great job of saving the middle portion, because I told the surgeon, I said, look, I'm an athlete. I'm like, I'm not a paid athlete, but I'm a cop. And, what's my 2-mile run time going to be once you take out my lungs? And he said, look in the waiting room. There's people that are 60 to 80 years old with COPD and all these issues. Like, I've never dealt with your issue before. So they took top and bottom lobe out. He reconstructed a blood vessel, turned a 3-hour surgery into a 6-hour surgery to save my lung. Harvard med guy. And when he came in post-surgery, I don't remember it, but my parents do. He said it was fun. And that's
not quite the word I would use to describe any of this.
And that's the caliber of surgeons you have in Boston too. At any other hospital, they would have deflated my lung, because they have to deflate it to work on it, and they would have ripped it out and said, easy, you're done.
Yeah.
So then on my recovery, 2 weeks later, post-surgery, I have a huge scar on my back from the lung resection. 2 weeks later, I go for a follow-up. They call me, hey, it spread to your brain.
Oh, shit.
So then I had to have brain surgery, brain radiation a bunch of times, which that was the easiest, because there's no muscle and there's nothing up there. So that was literally, I got a scar here, they cut a circle, take it off, took the tumor out. The tumor was resting on the brain, mixed germ cell, non-seminoma tumor. Took it off, put a clip and a screw in, closed it back up. I was home in 2 days.
You got 4 cancer in how many months? In a year? Within a year?
Oh, I'm not done.
Oh my gosh.
So then I had 10% of my left lung removed, scope surgery from scar tissue. then they opted to have chemo again, because this is where my oncologist is calling Germany, New York, Indiana, I think, where Lance Armstrong's was treated. And he was like, what do we need to do? And they said, we'll do outpatient chemo. And dude, chemo is not fun at all. You just get sicker. Whereas surgery, it's awesome. You show up, you get knocked out, you wake up, you start to feel better. Chemo, it's just this toxic thing in your veins. It kills all the good stuff. It kills the bad stuff. But so I had chemo again. Then it came back in the brain again. So I had another brain surgery. It was on a different spot, still mixed germ cell non-seminal tumor.
Did you piss somebody off or something?
I think so. So brain surgery, brain radiation. Then I was cancer-free from 2015. I started cycling in between surgeries. My buddy Mike worked at a bike shop. He's like, hey, buy a bike. Let's go riding. And I was never a runner. I'd always do the PT test and, the 1.5 miles, and I'd do sprints, but I'm like, I never enjoyed it. But I'd always make sure I would do it. Like, you need to do things that suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, you've done quite a few things that suck, so I think you've hit your quota.
Yeah. So I started cycling. Then I saw my oncologist, and he said, are you doing the PanMass Challenge? I didn't know what that was, but basically Dana-Farber puts on a ride, not a race, 5,000 or 6,000 cyclists from central western Mass, almost 200 miles from western Mass to the beginning at Cape Cod, the Bourne Bridge. You stay overnight, then you wake up and finish riding all the way to Provincetown. And all the money your team raises goes to Dana-Farber for cancer research and a cure.
So, I've done cycling. I've trained for a triathlon, and cycling, out of the three in there, right? So running, swimming, and cycling. Cycling is by far the most dangerous.
Oh, it is, yeah.
You're on very thin tires, and the road is unforgiving.
Yeah.
Like, I took a spill once just to give you an idea, and I have a picture of it. I took a spill. I was going over railroad tracks, and my front wheel got locked in. Yeah. It was like this. Front wheel got locked in. I go off at about 25 miles an hour, which doesn't sound like a lot.
That's fast.
I hit the ground. I woke up. My helmet is in two pieces next to me, and people are standing over me. Now I got like a $2,500 bike. I remember opening my eyes and go, "How's my bike?" And they're like, "It's over here. How you doing?" I just do this, right? All I was concerned with was my bike. But yeah, I had a big knot on my head. So yeah, that's like. People don't realize like how dangerous that is. Then you get saddle sore, and that's a whole other thing. Yeah, that's brutal.
So my oncologist said, "Do you want to ride with our team?" He kind of like openly asked him. I said, "I want to do my own thing." Sitting in my cruiser, and I came up with Thin Blue Ride as a team name.
That's a great name.
I'm like, I want to do my own thing. And my buddy Mike, who was a cyclist, one of the sergeants, he's like, yeah, I'll do it with you. And then my buddy Eric, who's a Marine vet, he goes, yeah, I'll do it with you. And then Ange, another cop, yeah, I'll do it with you. Granted, the other two people didn't even have bikes. And they were like, yeah, I'll ride 200 miles with you. So,
do they know what 200 miles feels
like? Yeah, exactly.
Like?
So that whole summer we trained, and we were getting some notoriety with local news. And so somebody put a picture of us where we get our cruiser keys. And because everyone shares cruisers in Worcester, it's, one cruiser runs from, has been running since the 70s, and it's still in the lot. And every day I would write down my mileage on that piece of paper with the picture. And from May to the ride is August 1st, or the first weekend in August, I did like 1,200 miles.
Yeah.
Because my buddy Mike always said, don't do less than 20 miles. I'm like, all right. So every time I went out, 20, 30, 40. I never did. So the first day is like 110 miles or 100 miles or something. And I never wanted to do 100. I never wanted to do 80. I didn't want to do over 50. But I wanted to be ready and efficient on my bike, because it's not a challenge if you do it already. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be...
It's a crowning achievement. It's like when you're training for a marathon, most training programs, you don't run 26.2 miles. You run maximum 20. Because if you can run 20 miles, you can run 26, right? Here's a quick question, a little side note. How many times have you fallen over because you couldn't get your feet out of the clips? Just say it, because I've done it. I'll fall on the sword. I've done it. I did it at a stop sign, and people were right next to me.
Honestly, when I remember I had clipless pedals in like the 8th grade. I had a Gary Fisher mountain bike, so I was used to it. It's on like once or twice. But I've also gotten a flat going down Mount Wachusett, doing 35 miles an hour, and I don't know how the hell I kept it up, and I just kept tapping the brakes. I'm like, please don't fall, please don't fall. And I had Zips, which are carbon fiber, very expensive wheels, which little did I know I would have fallen, because it was like, $1,000 for the back wheel.
Oh,
but I didn't fall, so I've been lucky.
Yeah, so it's the weirdest thing, because I had speed clips on mine. So I go in there, and I listen, I already knew the dangers because I've watched other people fall, so I'm working. Before I get out there the first time, because I'm not a cyclist, I taught myself how to, I'm clipping in and out, making sure I'm proficient in it and stuff like this. I get to a stop sign, and I can't get it out, and all of a sudden you just slowly go up.
Yeah.
It's humiliating when it happens. You get up, hoping nobody watches. So cycling gave me, I'll tell you what, the greatest thing with cycling, and I can see how that's great rehab for you. Cycling strengthened my core more than anything else I've ever done. I've been in a gym since I was 13 years old. Cycling got my core real tight. And to this day, I still have a really good, strong core because of cycling.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it.
Yeah. I mean, you're leaned over, and they always say you want to keep your hands loose, which means you're leaned over. That's all, your core is holding you up.
Yeah. And for you, who's somebody who had their complete guts ripped out, their core compromised, I can see how that rehab fits perfectly into your recovery. But more importantly, what did it do with that riding? Because you're on the road, and you don't have, people think, well, you can listen to music. No, you don't listen. You can't. You got to pay attention. What did that do for your mental status? Because you've had all these different cancers in you, and it seems to just be this evolving thing. How much did it free your mind up there?
I mean, I fell in love with it instantly. Yeah. First ride, me and Mike went around, and there's some good riding in Massachusetts. It's hilly. You got a good canopy, which is the trees giving you some shade. And basically we would go around Mount Wachusett Reservoir. Maybe it's 18, 20 miles, going from my house, 30 miles. So that was like me going to the track, running around 4 times at the high school. Is like, that was my track. 30-mile ride in like 2 hours was my thing. And I got to know where every crack was. And in the road, every bump, went to bend your elbows so you don't like hyperextend.
Well, that's the hard part about cycling, right? So you ride such great distances. It's hard to plan that out.
Yeah.
A run is easy. You're going to run 5 miles, 10 miles. That's easy to plan out. Go plan out a 70 or 80 mile ride.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. But I mean, it totally cleared my mind, and I loved every aspect of it. I loved, like, when I rode with my buddy Mike, he went to schools for how to ride. He'd be like, hey, bring your seat up a little bit, and you might want to, move your hand over, whatever, to be more efficient. So we would ride, and we would talk, and then sometimes you just ride, and I'd have other buddies I'd ride with, and you just think, and be like, hey, maybe we should, the Thin Blue Ride shirt we make, maybe we should do it like this. And then you just think of.
Well, Thin Blue Ride, did you turn that into a nonprofit?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. So Thin Blue Ride, our first year with the Pan Mass, we raised $27,000, all for Dr. Sweeney's cancer research. Then we did Pan Mass again, and in 2017, we turned it into a 501c3 nonprofit. So the thought behind that was, when I was out of work, my friends had a benefit for me at Mechanics Hall in Worcester, and they raised money. It had raffles. It was awesome. I was still going through treatment, so I was like gray. I was still at chemo. It was nonstop. It was crazy. I had my high school football team there. I had the guys I went to Iraq with there. I had the police department. I had half of Leicester there.
Well, you're the perfect poster boy for something like this. Okay, you've had cancer of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, you worked this plan. You worked a life of trying to do the right thing to, I have a goal. I'm going to work. I'm not asking for anybody to give me anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to work as hard as I can. And then you get hit with this wall, this cancer after cancer after cancer. And look where you are today. You're actually turning that pain that you felt and all those bad things that happened to you, you're turning it into an amazing purpose. $27,000. You know, how can you go up to somebody? Think about this. You're going up to the random person. I've had cancer of everything. Would you like to donate to the nonprofit that I started out of having cancer of everything?
Yeah.
The Thin Blue Ride.
And it's crazy too, because from where I started, I told my story, and we'd get, peaks and valleys. Pan Mass. The first Pan Mass I did, that weekend was my 1 year cancer free, and they took the story on WBZ, I believe it was, and they showed that during the opening ceremony. So sitting in the audience, being 1 year cancer free, seeing my story on the big screen, and that's also live in Massachusetts or whatever station shows it. So that was awesome. And there was 4 of us riding. We had our kits made with the Thin Blue Line flag, with our flag, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's the Thin Blue Ride guys." I'm like, we're like celebrities that weekend. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And, if I could inspire people through my pain and suffering, then I'll tell my story every day. And since we've started, it's always been, now being retired, but it's now I'm pushing the nonprofit, and I'm also pushing my story because it's helped people.
Well, just out of curiosity, you left the police department. Was it medical retirement?
Yeah. So in 3.5 years ago now, I did end up getting on the SWAT team, got on as a sniper for 8 years, had a lot of fun doing that. We worked the marathon, we, did call outs, riots, all that stuff. Great training. And going to the sniper range one morning, I get a call from my doctor. "Hey, your white blood cell count is 80,000. I go, "Okay, what should it be?" He said, 5,000. I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" "You have leukemia." So I'm sitting there in my Jeep getting news again that I had cancer, and I could not get I called. Kelly was my fiance. I don't know if we were engaged. Yeah, we're engaged. And I called, and I just could. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like I couldn't say anything.
You have the ability to win every single fight in your relationship.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, I got cancer.
Yeah.
I got leukemia.
So I got leukemia, and the best, thing for that was to go shoot my bolt gun at the range and blow some steam off. And then I go home, and this was a couple years ago, whatever. And she goes, "Max, my stepson, has COVID, so he can't come home." So I got diagnosed with cancer, and I couldn't go home. So I got a hotel. I called all my buddies. "Hey, let's meet up for some old fashions." And, I had to stay in the hotel for a couple days. I called my buddy Brian, who lives up in New Hampshire. I go, "Dude, I just got diagnosed with cancer again. I need to climb a mountain." So we went up to Mount Chikura, hiked a mountain. I went, stopped at SIG, bought a gun, a little therapy, shopping and stuff. But, and then I go home, and I go back to Worcester, and Kelly tests, and she goes, "Well, now I have COVID." So it was 2 weeks of, not going home after being diagnosed.
But you had every right, going through what you went through, just to throw your hands up in the air and say, "I quit. I quit." But you chose a different path.
Yeah.
Okay. You chose the path of, I have this stuff. It's not going to stop me. I'm going to fight until my last breath. And a lot of that comes from your background, right? So, in sports, you never quit. In the military, you never quit. These are all things that are instilled in you, and you're still never quitting. You're turning just this horror that would destroy most people.
Yeah.
In some way, you find power in that. How do you do that?
Well, to go back, it wasn't as easy as just being that positive, because even when I would tell some people, I get brain cancer, I remember seeing another police officer at the gas station. I'm like, "I get brain tumors, so then I got to have surgery and then radiation." And he's like, man. And I'm feeding off of him, and I'm like, he's like, "What the fuck, Dage?" I'm like, yeah, what the fuck? Like, I started really getting it, like, it really turned in me, like, pretty dark for a bit. And I was like, why is this happening? And I'm like, is it my diet? Is it, there's a million different things. Is it environmental? Is it genetic? It's whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is I got sick, and what am I going to do? Like, is it going to consume me, or am I going to do what I can to make the quality of life better and help other people on top of that?
Somebody who stared death in the eye like you, okay, you have a choice. Either I'm going to control it or it's going to control me. That's your choice, right? You have no other choice. You stared death in the eye, so you know that time is precious. Time is not a foregone conclusion. It's a gift every single day. And with you starting the Thin Blue Ride and doing what you're doing, you're showing people that, well, I'm going to live this gift the best way I can, because from your past, it just keeps rolling downhill.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why you're here and the reason why you've overcome so much is because you got something special up here, something special in here that's keeping you going. And wow. I mean, it's amazing.
To me, it was like, even when I was in Iraq in 2003, whatever, both deployments, there was nothing special, but everyone's like, oh, I can't believe you're over there. And in my eyes, I go, there's 300,000 other troops here. Like, this, I'm not special. Like, they're here too. So it's with the nonprofit, there's been a lot of darkness that comes with that, where we help. So, and I don't think we mentioned it earlier, Thin Blue Ride, we're like a GoFundMe, but we don't take a percentage. So we raise money for first responders, veterans, and their families when diagnosed with cancer. We raise money. Say if we raise $2,500 for somebody, we add, I don't know, $500 or $2,500 to it, and we say, here's a check for $5,000. Do with it what you want.
There's nothing specific. Doesn't have.
No, initially I was like, maybe we'll do medical, and I'm like, screw that. I'm like, medical bills are medical bills. I'm like,
grocery bills.
Grocery bills.
Yeah.
Paying. You're using credit cards. You're not working. You're not working overtime. You're not working details.
These are not people who are taking vacations every other week.
Yeah.
These are people who are trying to survive.
Exactly. And some of them are, like some cops have stay-at-home wives or vice versa. So it's, someone's out of work. It's
a problem.
Unless they're like our department with the sick bank or something, cancer insurance, whatever. It's, let's help these people out. Money isn't the answer, but it helps.
Where can we find Thin Blue Ride? Say city audience wants to donate or get involved in some way.
So we have thinblueride.org. We have our website. We have our cancer warriors of the people that we've helped. We also have Thin Blue Ride on Instagram. That's on Thin Blue Ride. And what else? Facebook. Typically, I try to hook it up all together so it's kind of streamlined.
Everything will be linked in our show notes as well.
Yeah. And also on the other end of it, I've realized that my story has a lot of weight to it. Like, I've been speaking at high schools and some colleges and some keynote speeches for events, which, again, like, I will tell anybody my story, especially if it helps. Like, I just spoke with some sophomores in high school, and they wrote so many nice things, which is funny because high school kids, they sit there like this, or they're like sleeping. And then I get the feedback, and I'm like, oh, you're so inspirational, and it reminds me of how my mother was sick and all this stuff.
Cancer has touched every single person in the country.
Exactly.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
There is nobody in this world, or at least in the United States, that says they don't know somebody who has had cancer, passed the cancer, or survived cancer.
Yeah, which is disgusting. But, and with all my stuff, I've had to get brain surgery, chemo, radiation, all this stuff. When somebody DMs me or calls me, or somebody, friend of a friend, hey, my grandfather's sick, hey, my dad's sick, hey, my uncle's sick, and they got to do X, Y, and Z. First thing I tell them is to get right treatment, meaning go to MD Anderson, because we help with veterans. Hunter 7 Foundation tags us in posts, and then I'll reach out to that person who's a veteran typically, or a cop, and I say, hey, do you want our help And I usually don't ask. I say, we're going to help you. Just send me some pictures and some info. And we try not to put everything out there. Like, as a nonprofit, we want to show people that we're handing that big check.
Well, that brings in more donations so you can
Yeah.
do more. That's
But at the
part of the
same
game.
time, I don't want to put somebody out there who doesn't want to be put out there, like the specifics. Like, hey, just if you want to just share a little bit, if you want to share a lot. And with me, I think having such a big family, having such a big friend network and group, I was always telling people to keep them updated. And now I think that's helped me with sharing the story of talking about it helps too.
Well, you see, they're looking at you as a model of a way to not only survive these cancer diagnoses, but also thrive.
Yeah.
Okay, because their life's not over. You still got more to go. You're not in the ground yet. Stop mourning your own life while you're still here.
Yeah.
You know? So, Jonathan, we're coming to the end of this thing here.
Yeah.
Why don't you give out all your stuff, where we can find you, where we can find a Thin Blue Ride one more time?
So thinblueride.org, Thin Blue Ride on Instagram, Thin Blue Ride on Facebook.
And you're personally attached to all of them, or do you have your own personal stuff?
I have my own Dage 22. I feel like I had Instagram when it just started, so I've always been posting stuff. And now, you know, some stuff I like to keep separate. Like I've gotten stem cells. I got an Axiom H2, which produces hydrogen. So I've been using, like, that company sent me that machine.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like a $6,500 machine. It's a nasal thing. There's attachments. You can make hydrogen water to it. But for me, when I would breathe in, I would wheeze. I use the machine for 2 weeks. It's gone.
No kidding.
I've had less pain.
There's a lot of stuff out there.
So it kind of resembles a hyperbaric chamber where oxygenates the system. Cancer hates oxygen. So there's stuff out there, and I've been doing contrast therapy. Like, you name it. What's it going to hurt?
Try everything. Throw everything up against the wall.
I'm trying everything. You know, my numbers are low. I still have to take. I'm living with leukemia. My baseline has changed. I had to retire because low oxygen in my lungs, and that's either whether it's from my leukemia stuff, from the COVID shot, or from the doctors say it's because I'm older and they took my lungs out. But in 2020, I went to Mount Everest Base Camp at 17,800 feet, and I rode my bike up Mount Washington in 2018, but my lung resection was in 2015. I'm like, that doesn't math to where I hit a wall a couple of years ago. So now I'm retired. I could focus more on sharing my story.
You got a extremely worthwhile cause, and you're somebody that doesn't owe the world a thing. So we're coming to the end of this thing here, and I always end the show the same way. You got a crazy story, man. It's nuts. And you've suffered on a level that most people don't understand, and what you've went through and had to overcome, but it had to teach you something, because if it doesn't teach you something, it is a wasted opportunity. And I know it's taught you something because you're actually using that as your fuel to move forward. But what is the suffering of all this cancer and starting a Thin Blue Ride taught you?
You have to suffer intentionally on purpose in order to grow. And when you do that on purpose, that's getting you ready for the unknown suffering. If that makes sense.
I love that. So I love that because I am a big believer in that. That cancer diagnosis, those multiple cancer diagnoses. Think about this, and this is going to be kind of weird. You wanted to be a vet. You wanted to be a cop. You didn't want to have cancer. But without the cancer, you wouldn't be where you are now, and you're impacting other lives. It's funny how the worst things in your life become your purpose-driven things.
And I get to retire early.
Yeah, that's not a bad move either.
So I also, one more thing. I have a book that I just finished, Beyond Survival, What Comes After the Fight. And so that's at the publisher now, and that's my story.
Well, when it comes out, you got to let me know, and we'll blast it out.
Yeah.
Like, we'll blast it out everywhere because people got to hear this. People got to. This is one of those stories that people can gain strength from, and that's the purpose behind all this stuff. You went through this stuff because you were the strongest soldier. You could handle this stuff because somebody else, if they would have got it, maybe they couldn't handle it. So that's why it was given to you. Unfortunate that you had to lose a testicle to do that, because I think that's the harshest one. But nevertheless, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad to see what you're doing. I cannot wait to see what you're doing in the future. And once you're in here, you're part of our family, and anything you do gets pushed out everywhere we go.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, the Suffering of the Thin Blue Ride with Jonathan Dage. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Sports is more than just athletics. Gifts for children aren't always money. Hitting a wall can be a huge wake-up. Out of pain can come purpose if you choose to do it correctly. But most importantly, suffering leads to growth. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Clapper, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. Follow Jonathan at Dage22.
Yep.
And of course, follow the Suffering Podcast, and we'll see you next time.